Now we've since been joined by the two other lawyers. Want to give their names? Oh, let me just do that. So we have Mr. Olashupo Ojo here. He's a legal practitioner, and Wale Ogwade. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so just before you came, we're already, talking about the rule of law in Nigeria, and Mr. Wazirike has, took us to the, way back, how the rule of law is seen by different people. Now, let me start with you, Mr. Ogwade. The rule of law in Nigeria, if you look at it as it is, would you say it is being followed to the letters?
Obviously, the rule of law is not followed to the letters. And it can't be followed to the letters because we have a crooked constitution that we operate. And that's why some people like us have been saying that we need a national conference. Because the constitution we operate is Decree 24. It's a military decree. And in between, in it, there are some lacuna, there are some discrepancies, there are some challenges. And of course, as we go on in the issues of governance, we have discovered that all these things have brought in challenges, particularly on the part of the executive, particularly on the part of the judiciary, and of course, the legislature. And we see it happening all over. The National Assembly is on recess now as a result of the problems in the Constitution. The legislature, is, the judiciary is not moving. As a result
of the problem
of the Constitution, in the Constitution. The Constitution, because the Constitution, the way it is, I mean, there is no defined separation of power as should be.
No defined separation of power?
There is no defined, they are mute. In most cases, because the National Assembly refuses to be, it is seemed generally that the National Assembly should be the rubber stamp of the executive. So if they are now intransigent or they don't want to kowtow, definitely there will be issues. Whereas they are supposed to work together. It's just like a vehicle, the engine of a vehicle. The piston and the ring and the calibrators and all these things must work together, or else the engine will knock. And that's what we're having. But let me just move away. The main issue is that here's the Constitution. My brother, before I came on here, was talking about the rule of law, security, and co. You mentioned Chapter 1, but it's Section 1C, 11C of the Constitution, about the supremacy of the Constitution. Then we now go to Section 45. That suspends any right you have. And that's about issues for public interest. The other day, people had Ebola in this country. Some of them were quarantined. Why didn't they say no? And people, some activists will come out and say, let them go on the streets for public health and public safety.
Public interest.
So, some other day too, some people came out and said, no, they wanted to corner the country. They want to divide the country, and they started causing mayhem on the streets. I lived about 10, 15 years ago. My neighbors were the OPC. That's where they had their headquarters. And they caused mayhem before Obasanjo messed them up. If they had allowed, those who live in the Egbe Ikoton axis know what I'm talking about. Then I was a victim too in these El Zazaki people in Shait, in Zaria. In the course of my movement around in Zaria, I ran into them, and they were, of course, busy destroying vehicles and so on. So even let's assume that one is too late. The fresh one, that's something that happened in Abuja, that they just started train trolls and Kaduna and engaging people. Do we allow that to continue?
But are you
no
saying...
serious government will allow the breach of law. And in not allowing the breach of law, there must be something to hold it. And that's why the framers of the Constitution allow Section 45 to be there. And I'll read it out so that you see, this issue is not sentiments. When we look at the law, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a politician. So whenever I talk as a lawyer, not as a politician. And you must look at the law as it is. And the law in Section 45 says, nothing in Section 35, 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41. And those sections are about right to life, freedom of movement, freedom of association, you're forming religious group, and so on. That said, shall invalidate any law that is reasonably justified in a democratic society. A, in the interest of defense, like these Boko Haram people. I mean, they take over a country, a territory of the country, and you say they should allow, is their federal rule of law, and there is a right, fundamental right, or public safety. You understand what I'm saying? Or public order, or public morality. some young girls now. The other day I was, I know Fela Shrine before it was relocated to the present place. It was in the middle of a residential place, and they said, no, this act will corrupt our young ones. You see girls moving in nudes, people smoking Indian hemps. No, the business district that they were taken to was not too populated then. So let me just quickly close. Then, of course, be said for the purpose of protecting the rights and freedom of others. That's you and I. That's why this section is there, to protect our rights.
So if you want to, protect our rights, you've mentioned Boko Haram. When they are captured, for instance, what do you do with them? You take them to court, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in the case of the former National Security Advisor, what really is that national interest or national security that
for which he's being kept?
He's being kept even after the courts have said, let him go.
I'm here to promote the law. I'm not on the side of government. I don't know anything why government. I have no information as to why government.
Why he's still there.
I don't have no information. Right.
So there may be something wrong with the rule of law, the application at that point.
I don't know anything, but mine is that the law...
Just before he comes in, no, he read something.
Yeah.
Section 45. Nothing shall invalidate any law.
Yes.
We're not talking of any law met. It's the legislature that makes law.
Yes.
President Muhammad Buhari does not make law.
No, but
executive does not make law.
Excuse
me, does not make law. It's only law we're talking of. But remember, when somebody sits in one small office and says it's in the national interest, is he making law?
What I just read is in the Constitution.
Okay, Mr. Ojo, let's have your take.
I think it's not a pedestrian issue we are discussing. And it's not a matter for any soldier or retired soldier to venture into anywhere. It's better to restrict himself to matters that he appears to be knowledgeable about, even though it's been a long time he was on the field. And it's not the first time we hear or read something like this. The Attorney General of the Federation, when he was trying to justify the continued detention of Dasuki, was saying in the interest of justice, in the interest of security and public interest. So when I heard the president talking at the NBA conference, I knew that somebody wrote that thing for him. And as the person to be fully responsible for that statement, he ought to have uttered it, even while reading it. But because those who wrote it also knew his body language. They knew his tendency. They knew, they talk together, so they know what he says ordinarily. So I would say that to say that the rule of law is subject to public interest and security, that statement is lifeless. Very, very lifeless. Because the Constitution is very clear. You understand? The Constitution is very, very clear. That section 45 you wrote, he said nothing shall invalidate any law. That is, in case the National Assembly makes a law.
That's true.
Restricting or saying that people should not move if there is Ebola in town. In essence, there must be a law. And somebody cannot go to court and say, court, help me to declare that law invalid. Then the court will look at that law as made. Is it in public interest? Is it in the interest of security? It's only the court that can say that, not a president. Not even the National Assembly. They can only say so in their own law, but it is the court that is the ultimate authority to declare or pronounce on it. Otherwise, we will not be able to sit down discussing this issue here now. They will have barged into this place and said that we should get out. You see? So the rule of law is not a child's play. It's the foundation of any modern society, any orderly society. It is something that has been subscribed to by everybody. The Constitution says this law the Constitution shall be supreme. Supremacy of the law is the first principle of the rule of law. So that I can sleep and wake up knowing fully well that the country is still as it was when I slept yesterday. I know nothing could have happened overnight. So I'm okay to continue doing what I'm doing. You understand? It also says that there should be no arbitrariness in law. That is, you can't just wake up and say that, no, even though it is 9:34 a.m., no, it is 12 noon, because you are the president. So it is possible under military rule, on democratic institutions or governments, to say that it is the rule of the gun, not the rule of the law. That's what we were under. That's why many people died in Nigeria, to get to where we are. And for somebody now to wake up and come and be making such very dangerous pronouncement, it's like, I look at it, it's like even shooting himself in the leg. I say, you elected and sworn in to defend this constitution, you are now saying that the rule of law should be superseded by public interest and security. That means you are actually pronouncing yourself as not being the president of Nigeria again. Because somebody can wake up and say it's public interest that you are no longer the president.
That's true.
He said the president because of the rule of law. You know, it's like what it is like. It's like you hold a pistol. You don't know anything about it. You now turn it against himself and pull the trigger. Luckily, the pistol was not loaded. Otherwise, he would no longer be president now. So the point I'm making is that the rule of law is no respecter of anybody, and it also guarantees fundamental human rights. Human rights according to law, security according to law, public interest according to law. Everything has been defined according to law. So nobody can define it different